So we are going to attempt May, June 2024, paper 23. Let's look at the section A first. All right, so section A, Turkey's unconventional way of managing its economy. All right, so the relationship between interest rate and general price level is one that is central to macroeconomic theory, namely that an increase in the rate of interest produces a reduction in the rate of inflation in an economy. So in the starting three lines, the case is talking about contractionary monetary policy, which states that whenever your interest rate rises, your inflation rate falls. It's talking about contractionary monetary policy. All right. Most economists agree on this relationship, not so according to the President Erdogan of Turkey, who has defied conventional economic theory in tackling his country's fundamental economic challenges. So, according to the case, it is in favor of economists that economists suggest that whenever interest rate rises, inflation rate falls. Unlike President of Turkey, Erdogan, he says that this is a false theory and this is not how it goes. So he defied the conventional economic theory and said that it will not solve the problem of inflation. Two economic challenges stand out. There is spiraling inflation and a collapse in the external value of Turkey's currency lira in the foreign exchange market as shown in figure 1.1. So this is your figure 1.1, which is talking about CPI and the inflation rate, or inflation rate of Turkey and the exchange rate of Turkey, that is lira per dollar. Now, as you can see clearly, Turkish lira per USD. Turkish lira per USD means that how many Turkish lira you have to pay in order to buy one US dollar. All right. If we start from here, let's say you had to pay 6.2 liras to buy a dollar, then around 7 liras to buy a dollar, then around how much? 11 liras to buy a dollar, which means that the currency of Turkey is continuously depreciating. Do you understand my point?
Yes, sir.
All right. And the inflation rate is also increasing. Moving forward, inflation and the exchange rate of Turkey, January 2020 and February 2022. In January 2020, the year-on-year rise on consumer prices was 48.7% against 36.1% year-on-year increase for December 2021. Much higher food prices and transport and energy costs accounted for most of the increase. So it has given you the reason why the prices increased so much, talking about food prices, transport prices, and energy cost. Despite this rise, the country's Monetary Policy Committee MPC held the short-term interest rate at 14%. This was the rate set in September 2021 when the MPC cut the rate substantially from 19%. So see how foolish they are that they have decreased interest rate from 19% to 14%, and they're talking about solutions of inflation. The president's unconventional approach has had a dramatic effect on the external value of the lira. The rapid depreciation in the value of the lira from September 2021 has had serious repercussions for Turkey's economy, as Mr. Erdogan has sought to prioritize exports over currency stability. Consumer and producer confidence are low. Many who can have converted their lira deposit into US dollars or euros, fearing a collapse of the banking system. Now, this paragraph tells you about the objectives of President Erdogan, about what he wants and how is he looking forward to things. So in this case, the priority of Turkish president is not to maintain the value of Turkish lira, but it's his priority is to maintain exports. He wants to increase exports, right? This is what is written here, that he has sought to prioritize exports over currency stability. Consumer and producer confidence are low. Logically speaking, that if your value of currency is falling, producers and consumers will stop investing in your economy. And they have converted their lira into deposits into US and euros, US dollars and euros, because they want an asset to keep their investments safe. All right.
Okay.
Despite these problems, the president remains adamant that his economics is right for Turkey. President is not moving from his policies, and he is just rigid that his policies are the correct one. Moreover, he is convinced that when exports increase and international tourism return after the COVID-19 pandemic, employment will increase and the current account deficit on the balance of payment will be reduced. If true, this unconventional approach to Turkey's economic problems will be proven to be a success. Now, what he is saying is that after COVID-19, the exports will increase and tourism will come back to Turkey, and this is how they will recover from current account deficit and their value appreciation. All right. So this was the complete case regarding Turkey. Now, question A. Use the information provided. Use the information provided to calculate the real interest rate. Give me a second. Use the information provided to calculate the real interest rate for Turkey in January 2022. So it is asking you to calculate the real interest rate for Turkey. Now, what is the meaning of real interest rate? Real interest rate means nominal interest rate less inflation. This will give you real interest rate. All right. Now,
Okay.
what is the year January 2022? So in January 2022, where is January 2022? This here in this paragraph. Now you can see clearly that in January 2022, the CPI was 48.7%. 48.7% means that this was the inflation rate. All right. And in
Okay.
January 2022, what was your interest rate? This is your interest rate. This is your interest rate. So 48.7 minus 14%. 48.7% less 14% is equals to how much? 34.7%.
34.7.
All right. So this is your correct answer. And you have to show the calculation as well. And you have to write minus 34.7 because it's
Yeah.
negative. Real interest rate is negative. If you don't write the sign of minus, you will not get an extra mark. You will get 1 mark only. Everything there?
Yes, sir.
Now, as for question number 2, explain why the Turkish lira depreciated from September 2021. From September 2021, from this point, why the Turkish lira depreciate? So there are many reasons given why Turkish lira depreciated. You can talk about fall in interest rate, that your interest rate is falling from 19% to 14%, making it unattractive for savers from other countries who want to save in Turkey. So demand for lira will fall. All right. As for the other reason, you can say that due to increase in inflation, exports of Turkey fell, and due to this fall in export, the demand for Turkish lira is falling as well, and resulting in what? Depreciation of currency. Everything clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, consider the extent to which producers in Turkey are likely to have been affected by the depreciation of the lira on the foreign exchange market from September 2021. Consider the extent to which producers in Turkey are likely to have affected. Oh, depreciation. So how depreciation has affected producers living in Turkey according to the foreign exchange rate, a fall in the value. Now you can write multiple points here that if producers were importing raw material, the raw material price will increase. Price of part 2. Raw material price will increase. All right. Resulting to increase in cost of production. And this increase in cost of production will create a negative impact on the producers of Turkey. All right. This could be the first one. Second, what you can say is that there will be a reduction in the value of Turkish lira will lead to fall in incentive for producers because they will be getting less price for the same product, which will make it difficult for them to sell in international market, to compete in international market. Everything clear?
Yes, sir.
But if you're talking about positive point, you can write that since depreciation means fall in the value of currency, this will make the product internationally competitive because Turkey's price level is falling, making it more price competitive. All right. Now, for part C, assess whether Mr. Erdogan's economic policies have had a beneficial impact on Turkey's economy since 2020. So, the policies of Turkish president the policies of Turkish president. These are the policies, right? Now, let's talk about the positive effects first. The Turkish president has reduced interest rate from 19% to 14%. You can say that this reduction in interest rate can also decrease cost of production. The cost of production can fall, making capital cheaper. All right?
Yeah.
Capital is cheaper. So cost of production will fall. As a result, aggregate supply will rise and producers can produce more, so production will increase and demand for labor will increase. All right.
Yeah.
Also, you can also link it with the chart that throughout many months till you can say this point, till this point, the inflation rate is not that very high. The inflation rate is almost constant. All right. You
Yeah.
can use this point as well. However, as for the problems, it is written that higher food prices, higher transport costs, higher energy costs will increase cost of production. This all will increase cost of production, making it difficult for Turkish producers to cover up their cost and to compete internationally and to sell locally. So you can write
Yeah.
these pointers. Now, as for your conclusion, you can say that decrease in interest rate will lead to inflation. And since Turkey is already facing the inflation rate that is almost 50% in just a matter of months, so it is not a policy that should be recommended. The Turkish president should go for you can say contractionary policies, which is to increase interest rate, make investment more expensive, make saving more attractive, so people stop spending and start saving. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Now, coming towards the last question, excluding interest rate changes, assess what alternative policies might be used to reduce Turkey's inflation rate. Now, you cannot use monetary policy. You can use either supply side policy or demand side fiscal policy. All right. So it totally depends on you. Whichever you're writing about can either be fiscal policy or either be supply side policy. If you're talking about fiscal policy, you can say increase in direct taxes and reduction in government spending. You can write the benefits that this will control inflationary pressure and due to decrease in price, exports might start to rise again, leading to appreciation of currency. However, if you are talking about the drawbacks, you can say it will result in unemployment and all that. As for the supply side policy, you can say it is a long-term policy, it is effective in the long term, and you can give training, education, skills to workers. You can write benefits about that. All right. As for the drawbacks, you can write that it is a long-term policy, it requires a lot of resources, a lot of finance, and it's slow policy. And the problem faced by Turkey is increase in aggregate demand, not reduction in aggregate supply. You can write these points. So in conclusion, whatever you think is the best for Turkey, it can either be supply side or either be fiscal policy. It's your choice. So you can write about that. Everything clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. So this was our section A. Just give me a second and then we'll move to section B. Now, all right, Kiran. Moving towards section B. All right. So, question number 2, part A. It's a micro section. From 2030, most new production in the UK will be of electric cars. So they're trying to be eco-friendly, excluding the price of electric cars. You cannot write about price. Excluding the price of electric cars, explain the determinants of demand for electric cars and consider which of these determinants is likely to be of the greatest significance at the present time. You
Yeah.
cannot write about price. You can only write about other factors such as income. You can write about substitutes. You can write about advertising. What students, what they do is that they have wrote learn things like population and taste, weather, fashion, culture. These points are not relevant in this question. I mean, you can
Mm.
write them, you can score marks, but it is very irrelevant according to this question of electric cars. How will taste work in this type of question? Will I lick the car? It's such stupidity. Now, question number 2, part A. For AO1, that is of 3 marks, what you have to do is you have to define demand first. So what is demand? Then you have to give knowledge of at least 3 factors affecting demand. You can talk about income, you can talk about, like I told you, about advertising, you can talk about other goods, related goods. In analysis, you have to explain those factors. So in knowledge, when you identify them, that these are the factors that will affect your demand, you will get marks for knowledge. Then when you explain them, it will be analysis. All right. You have to show the diagram, you have to show a shift in diagram and just draw this. Don't draw equilibrium diagram because it is not relevant in this question. It's a very simple question. Now, as per my evaluation, I have written not all non-price factors are equally important. Government support and environmental awareness are likely to have the biggest impact in many countries today. So I'm focusing more on advertising. However, the most important factor can vary over time and across countries depending on income level, infrastructure, and policy support. Because the question was asking about the present time. So I'm telling him that it depends upon country to country, it varies country to country, whatever the country is looking for. Conclusion, the impact of non-price factors on demand depends on country-specific conditions, with some factors becoming more important than others over time. I am telling the examiner that there is no one best factor that can affect demand for electric cars. It depends upon government to government. It depends upon country to country. Now, you can say that in UK, there is an implementation by government, that government is implementing, it regulating people to buy electric cars. But it is not necessary that same would be the case in US or Pakistan. All right. So it depends upon country to country, whatever the most important factor is. Everything clear?
Yeah.
Part B. Assess whether cross elasticity of demand is likely to be more important in determining the demand for electric cars than income elasticity of demand. So the question is focusing on XCD versus YD. Which one is better to determine the demand for electric cars, yeah, XCD or YD? AO1 and AO2 of 8 marks, you have to define XCD. You have to start with formula. You have to mention close and weak substitutes. Benefits of cross elasticity of demand. Assess substitute, example, petrol cars. You can, XCD can help you with pricing strategy. You can link with complements for car charge because it's focusing on electric cars. You can say that the petrol stations can install car charging ports so people can come and charge their cars and pay the fee. We can talk about the compliments like that. But if we talk about drawbacks, because it is based on market conditions, so accuracy problem, the problem of accuracy, and consumer perception, that what consumer is looking for. Perfect substitutes are difficult to find because you cannot find an exact characteristic in an electric car that you find in petrol or diesel cars. As for the YD, Finite formula, you'll start by defining what YED is. You can talk about normal elastic and normal inelastic. Link with car showroom. If you remember the topic when we were discussing about YED, I told you about a car showroom owner who sells new cars and second-hand cars, new cars in boom and second-hand cars in recession. So you can give that case in your answer. Benefits linked with economic life cycle. So YED identifies whether the economy is in boom or recession. So you have to act accordingly, being a producer. You have to act accordingly, being a government. All right. Useful for long-term trends because whenever an economy has boom, so it goes on for a few months or few years. So people can get benefit from that information. Helps in market segmentation. If in your business studies, you must have learned the concept of niche market or market segmentation. People also segment their market or distribute their market according to income as well. Now, there are other factors as well, such as age group, gender, but income is also one of the factors where people distribute their customer base. So it helps in deciding a market segmentation. It helps in deciding what kind of product to sell. All right. However, drawbacks, instability of income. Now, what do you mean by instability of income? Doesn't matter that if the economy is in boom, everyone is rich. Second, different spending pattern. Now, a product can be normal for me but inferior for you. So it depends upon different spending pattern of different people. And it ignores non-income factors such as market conditions or such as uh, taxes and advertising. It ignores all of that. All right, everything clear?
Yeah.
Now, as for your evaluation and conclusion, the importance of each elasticity of demand, each elasticity of demand depends on market situation. Now, according to my standpoint, I'm saying that it depends upon the market situation, depends upon different factors. XCD may be more useful in the short run, especially when electric cars compete directly with petrol or hybrid cars. It helps businesses and governments understand how demand will react if the price of substitutes change. Now, in this point, I'm favoring XCD over YD. I'm comparing both of them. But income elasticity of demand can be more important in the long run. So in short run, XCD is beneficial. In the long run, YD is beneficial. As electric cars are still relatively expensive, demand may rise slowly in low income groups and more quickly in high income ones. So YD helps explain how affordability affects demand over time. So I am giving benefits of both of them. Also, as prices fall and incomes grow, electric cars may become more of a normal good with high YD, but while the market is still developing, XCD may be more useful for short-term decisions. In conclusion, in the current stage, XCD is more beneficial because it focuses on short-term approach. XCD is likely to be more important for pricing and competition, but over time, YED will matter more as electric cars become mainstream and income level affect demand more directly. So in the short term, XCD is beneficial and in the long term, YED is beneficial. Everything clear? Done?
Yes, sir.
Now question number 3, part A. Use PPC diagram to explain how government in a mixed economy might allocate more resources to consumption and fewer resources to investment and consider a limitation of this approach to resource allocation. What does examiner mean by resource allocation? This is your capital good, right? And this is your consumer good. All right. This is your PPC. By resource allocation, examiner means this. This is what examiner means. All right. That you are reducing capital good, you are increasing more consumer good. What will be the impact on society? Do you understand?
Okay.
Now, AO1, knowledge and understanding, that's a 3 marks. You have to define PPC first. You have to use increasing opportunity cost, the diagram, all right? Capital good and consumer good. This is how you will label the diagram. You will not label good Y and good X in this specific question for every student out there. Why? Because it has clearly specified, tell me the difference of capital good and consumer good, not good X and good Y. So this is how you will use your answer. You will use capital good, you will use consumer good. This is your knowledge part because the examiner asks you to draw a diagram. That is the reason why your diagram is in knowledge. In analysis, you will explain the diagram, all right? And then you will say how government can influence consumers to focus more on consumer good and to focus less on capital good, and to influence producers to produce more of consumer good and less of capital good. All right. So these are the factors that the government can use. Government can reduce taxes. Government can provide subsidy on finished good, and government can reduce government support for investment. You have to explain all these three. As for your evaluation, you see, Kalen, if in the short term you focus more on consumer good and less on capital good, in the long run, it will be very harmful for your economy. Because if you produce more of capital good in the short term, this will be beneficial in the long run because you'll have more productive capacity. But right now, what you're doing is you're producing more of consumer good and less of capital good. This will result in long-term issues, long-term problems for you, because in future, if population increases or if demand for a particular good increases, you'll reach your potential and you'll reach to hyperinflation. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Now, listen to the evaluation. The PPC is useful for showing trade-off, but it is oversimplified, but it oversimplifies real-world decisions. It does not show whether the allocation benefits all of society and considers inequality and political goals. It also ignores external factors such as environmental impact and long-term public welfare, which can be more important than just moving along the curve. Now, as for the part that was written in your question, and consider the limitation of this approach to resource allocation, right? You can talk about long-term in limitations. So in limitations, you can talk about long-term problems. Long-term problems, all right. Give me a second. You can talk about long-term problems, lower productive potential, all right. And in your conclusion, you can also add, it depends upon it depends upon current requirement of society, that if there is a need for more consumer good, more resources should be allocated, right? So this is how you can complete your answer.
Okay, sir.
Done?
Yep.
All right. As for question number 3B, assess whether producers are the only ones to benefit when an economy decides to allocate additional resources to investment. Now the question is asking you that if I divert my resources towards investment, are the producers only one that are going to benefit? Now see, there are three economic agents: producer, consumer, and government. Firms, household, and government. All right. So you have to write about other economic agents as well. So for AO1, AO2, for producers, positive, lower cost of production, increasing in competitive pricing, innovation, profit, this and all, research and development, and all that. Now it's very simple in benefit in terms of benefits and drawbacks. But if you talk about negatives, investment has a higher initial investment cost, which can be difficult for some producers to manage. All right. Then you can talk about taxes that you have to pay taxes to government because you're producing more. So more tax will be paid to government. All right. And competitiveness will rise. You have to train workers. These are all the drawbacks. Then you'll move towards other economic agents such as consumers. Then you'll write about positives that the price level is falling. And will be more choices for consumers. The quality of goods and services will improve. However, lack of consumer good, lack of government spending on current goods, monopoly, threat of monopoly. When we talk about government, tax revenue will increase. Government can turn into a strong economy. All right. And however, the negatives include opportunity cost, negative externality, pollution, short-term public spending on consumers. So this is how the consumers will be negatively affected by this decision. Now, if we talk about evaluation and conclusion, producers may gain most in the short term through increased profits, better technology, and lower production cost. However, consumer can also benefit in the long term. Now, I'm talking about all of these three will benefit. Consumers will benefit as well in the long term if the investment leads to better quality food, lower prices, and more availability. The government may benefit too through higher future tax revenues and more job creation. So everyone is going to benefit. But these benefits depend on how effectively the resources are used and whether the investment supports national goals. In conclusion, in a well-planned economy, investment should benefit not just producers, but also consumers and the government, making the overall impact broader and more balanced. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, section C. With the help of a diagram, explain how increase in aggregate demand affect the level of real output and the price level in an economy, and consider when such increases may become a problem. Increase in aggregate demand leading to inflation and increase in real income. However, real output, sorry. However, last part is why will it become a problem? Now, define AD and components, simple aggregate demand shift. All right. You can write the explanation here as well. As for your analysis, reason for increase in aggregate demand. What could be the reason for increase in aggregate demand? Not necessary that the price level will increase. It is not necessary that the price will increase because what if the producer increases the supply as well? Now, if aggregate demand is increasing, going rightwards, and aggregate supply is moving rightward as well, there is a chance that there will be a nil effect in the price level, but your real GDP will increase. Now, the question which was related to the problem, if aggregate demand is increasing and if aggregate demand reaches to its potential, this will result in hyperinflation. The price will increase, but your real GDP will stay the same. It will not increase. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Now, evaluation. Increasing aggregate demand helps raise output and reduce unemployment. Yeah, it is a fact. Especially when there is spare capacity. Now, I'm telling examiner that it is beneficial to increase aggregate demand only if there is spare capacity available. But if the economy is already close to full capacity, more demand can cause inflation. Right? Do you understand? That if economy is already at full capacity, it can result in inflation and can also lead to hyperinflation. All right. Conclusion. So increasing aggregate demand is helpful in the short run, but if not managed properly, will lead to problems such as inflation. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Clear?
Yes.
Now, part B. Assess whether increase in aggregate demand are the best way of reducing unemployment in a high income country. The question is focusing on how to reduce unemployment using expansionary policies, using increase in aggregate demand. What you have to do is you have to define unemployment first. All right. You have to define unemployment first. You have to define the types of unemployment, and you have to talk about increase in aggregate demand. So you have two options. You can either go for expansionary fiscal policy, or you can either go for expansionary monetary policy. It's your choice, whatever you want to write. All right. Then you have to explain the benefits and drawbacks that you have in your notes. All right. Then you can also go for an alternative policy. But keep in mind that demand side policy is only useful to solve the problem of cyclical unemployment, not any other form of unemployment. I mean, it can also help frictional somehow, but the thing that it targets is cyclical unemployment. Then you have to write about the alternative policy of supply side. You can write about supply side benefits and supply side drawbacks in notes. Okay. May increase or may reduce structural unemployment. You can write about the benefits and drawbacks that are already in your notes, and you can draw this diagram. You can explain it properly. You can write about training, education, structural unemployment. You can write about innovation, research and development. Right? These are the basic benefits and drawbacks. As for your evaluation, increasing aggregate demand can help reduce unemployment. Yes, but it depends upon the type of unemployment. If in high income countries, many people are unemployed due to reasons like lack of skills and regional issues, not just low demand. So in high income countries, demand is high, it's not low. So cyclical unemployment is not possible in high income countries most of the time. But the reason why they are unemployed is because of lack of skills. Also, if AD increases when the economy is near full capacity, it might cause inflation instead of reducing unemployment. Now, if AD is continuously increasing and there is no spare capacity and there is no room for production, this will lead to inflation rate, and this will reduce unemployment. This will cause inflation. Relying too much on AD policies can lead to problems like higher government debt, temporary jobs creation, and which doesn't last. It is not for a longer period of time. Conclusion: increasing aggregate demand is useful, but it's not always the best solution. It depends upon the cause of inflation. It depends upon the current economic state. It depends upon that either the economy is a high income country or a low income country. So again, it depends upon numerous factors. Everything clear?
Yes, sir.
5A. Explain two possible causes of a change in the terms of trade in an economy and consider which of these causes is likely to be more important for a low income country. So they're asking for a cause of change in terms of trade. Now you see terms of trade can either improve or it can either deteriorate. Okay? So this is how terms of trade is affected. The formula of terms of trade is export price, index of export price over index of import price multiplied by 100. So let's look at the scenario. Define terms of trade, right? Terms of trade definition formula. Terms of trade improves when export price increases or import price decreases. Terms of trade worsens when export price decreases or import price increases. So it's a very basic general concept. As for AO2, you have to write and explain two reasons for terms of trade changes. You can write about depreciation of currency, you can draw J curve, you can write about Marshall condition. In low income countries, usually what happens is that low income countries deal with primary products like steel, raw material, cotton, and this and that, right? So they deal with primary stage of production, which is usually in Iraq. So there is a chance that they might charge a higher price, leading to an increase in export price, resulting in improvement in terms of everything clear. Now, as for the evaluation, changes in export prices often affect low income countries more because they depend on a few key goods. If these price falls, the terms of trade worsen. Exchange rate matter too, but less if the country trades less or controls currency. Now it's talking about is linking it with low income country. That in low income country, what happens is that you are dependent on very few goods, and when you are dependent on few goods, an increase in price, a fall in the price of these goods might result in a negative effect on terms of trade. Conclusion: overall, for low income countries, changes in export prices usually have a higher effect on terms of trade than exchange rate movements. So it's telling you that overall in a low income country, whenever export price is affected, usually it negatively affects the terms of trade in your country. Everything clear? Kalen, any problem?
No, sir. Can you hear me?
No, I couldn't hear you earlier, but now I can.
My bad, I'm speaking soft.
As for your last question, question 5B, assess the extent to which different tools of protection can impact the terms of trade in an economy. So it's talking about protectionism and linking protectionism with terms of trade. All right.
Yeah.
Now, if I think generally, what could happen is that when a tariff or a quota is implemented on your imports, this
Mhm.
increases the price of import, right? So
Yeah.
when this increases the price of import, according to the formula of terms of trade, my terms of trade will be affected negatively and will deteriorate. All right. Now look at the answer. Define tools of protectionism. Explain how terms of trade could worsen due to implementation of protectionism. Now import price will rise. This will cause terms of trade to deteriorate. We can talk about tariff, quota, embargo, any two of them, right? You'll write about, you'll draw the diagram, you'll link it with the benefits and drawbacks of protectionism that are written in your notes as well. Now, evaluation is important here. The impact of protectionism tools like tariff and subsidies on terms of trade depend on the country and how others react. Sometimes protectionism can improve terms of trade, but it's not guaranteed. Majority of the time, it reduces the value of terms of trade. If other countries respond with retaliation like their own tariff, it can cancel out the benefit. Smaller or weaker economies may also not have enough power to change world prices, so the effect can be very small. Over time, too much protection can make local firms less competitive and reduce efficiency, which worsens the terms of trade. Now, once your efficiency decreases, your value export will fall. You will not be able to charge high because the quality is compromised now. This means that your terms of trade, according to your numerator, that is the value of your exports, it will fall. Right? Do you
Yeah.
understand?
Yes, I do.
As for your conclusion, protection tools can help in some cases, but often the effects are small and or even harmful, especially if they cause retaliation or lower efficiency. So in general, yes, terms of trade will be negatively affected if protectionism is implemented. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Everything clear?
Yeah, now it is.